We are back, and this time it's a toughie. Resident Evil 8 The Village. It's going to be a likely contender for Game of the Year, and I'm sure the majority believe this to be a great game, and I agree, for the most part, but there are problems, okay? Stop living the lie. But let's start with the good. Maybe the first thing anyone will notice is how goddamn pretty this game is. It really is stunning, from textures to animations to environments. It is all just built with such care. Especially the characters. They are gorgeous enough to give you some skin bumpies. RE7 was a soft reboot of the franchise, getting back to the series' roots with a new perspective and gameplay pace. Gone are those bazookas and assault rifles, and in walks the stealth and methodical combat. RE8 is the same, well, kinda, but we'll get to that later. Let's just say I had fun most of the time. Alright, let's talk story. The story is decent, however most of its intrigue comes from its characters and the performances behind them, not the actual narrative beats. The open world of the village and castle allows for some exploration and filling in the holes of what the village is and how it came to be. Overall, though, it's a Resident Evil kind of story with a nice little twist. Ugh, I really thought this was going to be one of the best games of the year. And it was, but that speaks more to how weak this year has been, because honestly, this game is good, not great. And yet, it still may be the best thing to come out this year. Sad. RE8, 8.5. Now, how to make RE8 the real game of the year? Well, let's start with gameplay problems. Gunplay is clunky but functional. However, I've already argued that it is perfect for survival horror games. You want to worry whether you'll land that perfect headshot. And they have added a nice little shopkeep with weapon upgrades, but here is where the problems arise. This upgrade system is implemented poorly. You don't know if you're going to get enough currency to upgrade every item, or just enough to pick and choose. On top of that, you'll get multiple weapons of the same type. 2 shotguns, 2 pistols. It would be one thing if the game just came out and told me, hey, you won't have enough money to get everything, so choose wisely. The fat fuck shopkeep could tell me himself. One quick line when we meet. I would have saved a lot of wasted time trying to get a powerful sniper rifle. Fix it! I already stated this story is a Resident Evil kind of story, meaning an obscure, over-the-top monster conspiracy mess. I actually wouldn't change that. It's part of the charm of Resident Evil, I suppose. But something I would change is the lack of depth on each of the bosses. The children of Miranda. They are the strongest part of the game, not to mention the focus. So focus on them. Their stories aren't explicit enough, and they have very little moment-to-moment teeth. They're really nothing more than an obstacle. I'd really like to see them as more of a struggle, as characters that drive the protagonist, Ethan, I think, forward. For example, Moreau is clearly a suffering character. If we could have seen that character getting belittled and watched them deteriorate mentally, that would have made the moment I had to put them out of their misery hit harder. This could have been the same for all the bosses. Only 2 of 5 even kinda do that. This all leads to Mother Miranda. She is way underutilized. She should be an underlying threat throughout the game, and she is not. She just kind of shows up at the end. I only killed her because she's glowing red, and this is Resident Evil. You shoot the red shit. Honestly, though, I did not give a fuck. However, these are baby things compared to this next one. The pacing. The pacing of this game is horse shit. It doesn't even make sense. 5 main bosses, Mother Miranda and her 4 children. But a third of the game is spent on Lady Dimitrescu. Nailed it. And a third is spent on Heisenberg. That leaves more than half the bosses for less than a third of the game. I was sick of that castle and factory so fast. And it felt like I was already through the village in a blink. Now, we already talked about Miranda's brief encounter, so here's your fix, Capcom. Each boss gets roughly equal time and development. This equality leads me to my next fix. Each area needs its own mechanic. They stumbled into this, perhaps accidentally, with Lady Dimitrescu acting as Tyrant from Resident Evil 2. And the lack of weapons in Donna Benviento's section making it puzzle-heavy. Moreau could have been trap-based, while another could have been like a cat-and-mouse game. But in actuality, all the bosses, except for one, just end up being giant bullet sponges. Pretty easy fights on top of that. Change it! And this final fix spins right off that bullet sponge bullshit. Too much action! There are whole areas of this game that consist of battle arenas with swarms of enemies. These are okay, but the last 2 hours of the game are a different story. From the point of the Heisenberg fight to the Chris Redfield section, spoiler alert, to the final fight with Miranda is a shooting gallery. Bad. Bad Resident Evil! I'm not sure why Capcom cannot get it through their thick shit skull Resident Evil isn't an action game. This isn't Gears of War or Uncharted. You're a horror game. So knock it off! They cannot seem to learn that lesson. It's Resident Evil 5 and 6 all over again. And I won't have it. Not on my watch, Capcom. How'd I do? I think I fixed it for you and for Capcom. It's mostly a lot of fun, but I think it had a shot at Game of the Year with this shitty year. Do not fuck up Resident Evil 9, Capcom.